number of potential challenges facing the lobstering industry. There's been court cases that have almost just wiped out the industry as a whole. It seems to me that lobstermen don't have a seat at the table, and it just seems like we're in a position where something just may steamroll us and leave us.
I really enjoyed Island Lobsterman. I liked the insight into this quiet, peaceful lifestyle. Just seeing a day in their lives was so calming to watch. I liked to see into their father and son relationship. I thought that was cool to see too, and it was really sweet hearing the father and son talk about each other, especially when they cut their interviews together. I really liked just hearing from them about each other. I thought it was a good way to show how these big corporations are the ones behind, the killing of the whales and the pollution, and yet since they're so big, they're really hard to target. So these small lobstermen are becoming the scapegoats for this problem when it's really not their fault, which I think happens a lot in society with a lot of other things as well, which is it's a good thing to realize. And I think this brings attention to that very well, just sort of showing how they care for the environment, and yet they're the ones being blamed for these problems when it's really the bigger corporations that are getting away with it. I thought this documentary showed some beautiful shots of the island, and just a beautiful overall take on the lobster industry and these small businesses that are just trying to make a living and live out their peaceful lifestyles, and yet they're being threatened by all sorts of things from every angle, from climate change to restrictions and how they're allowed to, set traps. So yeah, I enjoyed this documentary a lot.
Island Lobsterman. So I like the text in the introduction. It helps the viewer get up to speed with what the story is about. I like the slow pace of the documentary, especially because the way in which the town and the people are displayed, it very much displays that sort of slow, easygoing, relaxed community, and how the people live their lives. So I think that was a great choice by the filmmaker.
This film is called Island Lobsterman. This was a fascinating doc short from Maine, US. I know nothing about the lobster industry, so I learned a lot in this one. I love the scenes of the day-to-day work of a lobsterman, very informative interviews of a man and his father and others working in this industry. I appreciated the titles of info at the beginning and end of the film about new legislation coming up. The film gives a really balanced approach to the topic, showing these people as attempting to make a living, but also it addresses important environmental issues, such as finding creative ways to protect whales and acknowledging climate change. Nice chill soundtrack and lovely camera work of the area, of the boats, and those lobsters both under the water and caught. Great job.
It sounds like the lobstermen of Maine are very conscientious of the whales. They are well aware of that things need to be changed, but it's not time yet. They need the technologies in order to do it. They're trying to figure out what they are, but just for regulations to come in and tell them what they can and cannot do when the technology isn't there yet, you could hear their frustration. It's like, how? And like they said, they're like, the boats cause a lot more issues. This documentary was very educational about how fishing works off the coast, especially when it comes to lobsters. And the fact that I liked that it covered the fact that businesses and lawsuits like to come after small businesses rather than the big corporations like the cruise ships. Or like they said, a lot of it comes from Canada. You can't control what another country does. So a lot of this is going on, but it's a good thing. A lot of this that goes on, it's actually a very, very good thing that they're learning. They're trying to, but having something put off for another 6 years so they can figure out a cleaner way to get lobster without hurting whales. But I did love how informative this was. The information was really well done. This should probably be shown to those who oppose lobster fishing. That way they'd see exactly what it does and why it's important, and that these guys actually do care about the lobsters that they're fishing, which is why they throw some back if they're too big or if they're fertile or anything else. They do care, and they did make it clear that they cared about the whales too. It's just not only them hurting the whales. So it was really, really well done and informative.
Island of the Lobsterman does a really great job of presenting the character of the island and the people working on it and their passion for being fishermen and for the industry. And I think it does a great job as well in terms of exploring the wider issues around commercial fishing and the impact on the ecosystem, and that perspective from the fishermen working there, and what the compromise or what the solutions might be to both preserve the industry and the resources. Definitely a really interesting documentary.
Island Lobsterman is a really fascinating portrait into Maine's lobster industry. Everyone knows that Maine is most famous for its lobsters, but so it's kind of no surprise to see how much of the state's economy comes from that. But what was surprising was to see how the industry is under threat. It's really interesting to see how global warming and all its very complex consequences has caused so much trouble for these lobstermen. And what makes it even more sad is just how obviously, how clearly, how strongly they love the ocean and the lobsters. The work that they do to try and protect the ocean, protect the species. To see their entire way of life under threat because of these forces that are totally beyond their control is ultimately a tragedy. And it's also just such an interesting way of life as well. You can see how much pride that they take in their work, but also their island home and the community itself. Like running an art gallery and having all these artists come and supporting their work. You can clearly tell how much passion there is for it, and it's a really interesting looking place. It just seems a very beautiful place, and how terrible it would be if they could no longer support themselves.
Island Lobsterman was super informative. I think it was informative on the standpoint of, what is the day-to-day for a lot of these East Coast lobster fishermen in the United States, but also the welfare of the ocean environment and its impact from lobster fishing, but also a lot of other entertainment exports like cruise ships and other fishing and I don't know, I guess the best way to say is aquatic activities out there, and how that is negatively impacting the lobster industry, the lobster fishing industry. I think it was interesting because it presents a new look at, this legislation and these restrictions that are being put onto these lobster fishermen from the perspective of the people that it's impacting. Expressing that, hey, we do care about the welfare of the environment and the whales, but it is not us, and there are other people, and our technology isn't there yet to keep them safe in the ways that you want us to. I think it's a good argument for that, and it presents a lot of these arguments really, really well. I think it's incredibly informative on so many levels. I think you make a really good case for these fishermen, and you present a call to action for, looking into other ways that the government can, help keep their livelihood, help keep these small fishing businesses' livelihood, while protecting the environment and looking at other resources and other issues that are causing this environmental issue as well. I think it was very well put together, incredibly informative, and a very well done documentary.